Recording one. All right. Okay, guys, welcome back to another episode of Full Tilt Esports Psych. This is a podcast where we talk about esports psychology. I, along with my co-host, Mikey Do This. I'm Mikey W right there. Before we get started, before we get into this, Mikey, you know what I'm going to ask you. Are you tilted, Mikey?
I'm always tilted.
I'm always tilted, man. It's been so long that at this point we don't even know how to do our own intro, right?
Yeah, I actually don't anymore.
What's going on, man? What's going on, dude? What's going on with you? Anything new?
Honestly, just if I say it simply, I'm a lot happier these days. You know, we had a wild summer, and finally things are starting to slow down.
It's officially fall, right? Like I think we're officially in fall, isn't it? Like September 22nd or something, it becomes fall, I'm pretty sure, something like that.
In Texas.
Well,
right?
In Texas, we only have hot and cold, and we're not in cold season yet. So, you know, I mean, like, I don't know if that's how that works for everybody else, but that's how it works for us.
Who knows?
I think other places have seasons. I wonder what that's like. You know what I mean? We have hurricane season. That's like a thing, but that's like a sub season.
True.
But,
I mean, in Korea, like, there was tsunamis and shit, or it probably if you're closer to like islands, basically the coast, you probably get that type of weather more often.
Okay, I see.
Yeah. So,
cool.
I think today.
Yeah, we got a couple of topics we want to cover today. We're going to be talking about Naomi Osaka. We have had like some conversations about her before, her opening up about her mental struggles, and as well, we wanted to talk about an Instagram post by Doodledwellness. Created by Amy Tran. We wanted to talk about that, and we were going to get into a couple of those topics. I just wanted to say I apologize in advance if I sound a little bit crummy because I'm recovering from COVID. It's been like about a week now, and so I'm feeling pretty good. I was nothing ever like super duper happened, but yeah, getting over it. I have a little bit of coughing, tiny bit of congestion, so you might end up hearing that. So this is like your friendly reminder as your medical professional here to go and get your COVID boosters, right? So actually there's a new COVID booster that just came out in early September, and it's been pushed by the FDA and the CDC recommending it. It's got a bivalent vaccine, so basically it means that it targets the OG coronavirus and then also the newer Omicron variants BA4 and BA5. It's kind of like getting the new iPhone, man. It's like getting the new iPhone. You got to go and get the newest version, dude. Get yourself injected, right? And then they're saying that basically the effectiveness of the old vaccine is sort of wearing down a little bit. But
I see. Is it opening up now to everyone? Because like I think
so. It depends on like if they have it available, but it's still relatively new. But I think a lot of the major pharmacies will be carrying it anyway, so you can go and get that done, get it out of the way. For those of you,
definitely need to do that.
Yeah, it's best, especially for people that are planning on traveling or whatever soon. We'll get to that in just a second, but so it's basically most of the cases that are breakthrough cases and breakthrough reinfections are because of these new variants. So hopefully these new vaccines will cover those. In addition, go ahead and get your flu vaccine. It's about to be flu season as well. I've heard that because Australia gets it, that's their southern hemisphere, and then they switch it back and forth between northern and southern hemisphere. So Australia had their flu season, and it was apparently pretty bad. So go get your flu shots if you haven't got your flu shot already. I already got my flu shot, so I'm good. Anyway, and it's also okay. CDC says to get both at the same time, so you can get flu and COVID vaccines at the same time. So get those taken care of. That's your public service announcement for anti-pandemic kind of stuff. Because I myself has just gotten over the COVID virus, so it feels pretty bad, man. I could see how people that maybe like immunosuppressed or like have weaker immune systems or just get sick worse.
Right.
Like anybody with pre-existing conditions, it could really knock you out pretty hard. Most of the time, though, it seems to be these days it's a little bit more minor, so that's good news. But that's great.
As long as you have the vaccine and everything,
right? Learning to live with this virus, right? Speaking of traveling, speaking of getting your vaccines before traveling, Mike, I wanted to ask you. I think you're planning on going on a trip soon.
So I'm planning to go to Mexico soon. So I probably need to be one of those people that you just mentioned that need to get the
Arriba. let's go, Adewlel. We're going to Mexico City. Is that where we're going? Are you gonna hide me in your suitcase? You gonna bring me along?
Oh, I mean, if you want to, I got you, bro. It just might be a little bumpy ride on the way there.
That's okay. We'll just blame the pilot if it's bumpy at all. I wouldn't blame you, so it'll be all good. It's all good. Are you gonna eat? What are you gonna do there? Do you have any idea yet already? Or I said immediately. You notice I said eat. Right, so to me, like food is like an immediate priority. I also may be hungry right now, but who knows?
We're definitely trying to eat. I think my group of people wanted to try to visit a 1-star Michelin restaurant. Ooh, there's something like it's like Sochi Milk Co. or something like that. That's supposed to be essentially the equivalent to gondoliers, but in Mexico. What? So it's like a boat party, but like different.
Wait, that's so
type
cool.
Of thing. And it's super scenic. Apparently, my aunt and uncle who used to live in Mexico City or near it.
They must have a lot of suggestions.
They love it. Yeah, they had a lot. And then we got someone who was raised in Mexico City, so like he also knows a lot of stuff. We got Spanish speakers because my ass definitely cannot speak Spanish. So hopefully I don't get scammed. And I got good people looking out after me. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I could teach you some dirty phrases if you want to. We can get by. Mexico.
Yeah.
Or you might end up getting killed on the spot for telling them those things. But
I'd like to.
If you're adventurous,
next episode.
Oh yeah.
Before I die.
Well, whoever takes your place, we'll make sure to honor them, honor you on the next podcast. Pour one out for the homie.
Yeah.
Mikey W got lost in Mexico, lost in the sauce.
Not like this. Not like
this. All right, guys. So one more last thing before we get into the subject of the topic of our conversation today. We wanted to try and make sure that our podcast is a little bit leaner, cleaner, meaner, right? So we're kind of calling this Full Tilt Season 2, right? This is going to be the episode 1 of this. What we'd like to do is ideally, perhaps, shorten up the episodes or like try to make them more concise, make them more frequent, right? So we're covering some more of the more, up-to-date topics. More content, like current events and things like that. We'll be gaming more on this channel as well.
Exactly.
Getting some more engagement.
Entertainment clips. We'll probably put some entertainment clips. You can check our TikTok or YouTube Shorts, etc.
If we ever get boring, right? Like me and Mike get boring, or if we're talking about something boring in particular, that we could just put gaming content over the top of it. And you could just listen to us versus having to watch our stupid faces bobbing up and down and floating in the background. You could have some visual entertainment for those of you
that. We are the visual entertainment.
We are the visual entertainment. Look at this. You see this?
I'm just, yo.
You know how much effort I put into this? Come on, man. Anyway, so moving on now. Welcome to Full Tilt Season 2. All right, so what we wanted to get to talk about today is Naomi Osaka. So we've referred to her in the past, before. We've talked about her and sort of like how she's been pretty open about some of her mental struggles and about her performance sort of reflecting that, right? So we wanted to talk about, especially like more recently even, she's had more to say. There was an article that we've seen in BBC, and there's other articles elsewhere too having the same interview talking about her. I think the article came out on 9/19, so just about a week ago, September 19th, and it was sort of her talking about getting into her next tournament, which I think was the Pan Pacific Open, right? Correct. I think this is her like kind of almost like reintroduction back into competition, if I'm not mistaken. So, Mike, what do we know about this?
So, just a little bit more pretext. She was a 4-time Grand Slam winner, for those that do not know, but she
very, very good. In other words, for those that don't play tennis,
she was really good, and basically she went through long bouts of depression after this. For the 4 wins, or maybe even during it, to be honest. True. And she has dropped to 48th in the rankings in the world, I believe. So this was supposed to be a time where she said life is full of ups and downs, and it's been more downs, but she feels pretty good where she is at now.
Interesting.
So it felt like everything was about to go well, like she's found herself, etc., right? But, healing from mental health issues, aka like depression, anxiety, it can be a tricky path. And sometimes when you heal, it's not linear. You can go back and forth sometimes, and it takes time.
That's an amazing way to put that. I like that you said it that way. Yeah, it's it may not necessarily be point A to point B, getting better, right? You may like go through phases and things like that. It could be recurrent, right? And I think it is very, very, very important to emphasize that she is extremely young, right? Like,
Right.
just like for most of our channel or the people that are interested in sports or esports, right? A lot of this stuff, competitors and competitions start when you're extremely young. She's only 24
Yeah.
right now, so this could be really, really taking a toll on her. In that sense, especially because she doesn't have a lot of life experience yet so far, right? So
Right.
as far as that goes, that may not be something that she can draw on any like a lot of more previous stuff. She just doesn't have that experience yet,
Right. And she's building that experience, and hopefully she's like slowly figuring out her, to be honest, like the whole
That's fair.
feeling of like who I am and like what do I need. And maybe when she like, if I did a quick self-disclosure, it's like once you figure all that out, you feel like you're unlocked, like, or like you reach like a different level. It's kind of crazy. We'll go more into that a little bit later. But the I guess the sad part kind of that we found out recently is that in this Pan Pacific Open, Naomi Osaka actually withdrew in the second
Oh,
round.
really? Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, like we said, it's not linear, right? She thought she was good, and she said she left due to an undisclosed illness, I
Right.
believe. Is
Okay.
that right?
I think so. So what it says right here, she didn't specify the illness, and before the tournament, she
Right.
did say she was fit and healthy. So we don't really know. I think she's had an abdominal injury in the past.
And then she's also had an Achilles injury, and she lost in 3 of the last tournaments in the first round that she's competed in. Sometimes there's a mind body disconnection, and that can lead to injuries also.
Okay.
That's another subject that I believe we're going to go on a little bit later. But I guess with Naomi, you got to root for her so that she's working on taking that time for herself to figure herself out, even though she's like one of the top competitors, similar to like Simone Biles, right? She doesn't
Right.
want to keep getting injured again, right?
No,
Like
absolutely.
some people don't know, but there's a lot of these old athletes back in the day that they sacrificed their bodies, and then could not, their bodies gave up on them very early ages, due to whatever their lifestyle or the environment that they were in previously. But Naomi's trying to. She's trying to figure everything out, and I'm rooting for her. I hope she can come back better than ever and just compete with everybody. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally. I would completely echo those statements, right? And like it's possible that people, and I don't know. So like I not that I'm like doubting her or anything like this, or like I just wanted to get more into sort of like her mentality and things like this. But do you think that like considering that she's kind of used to success and all this stuff and being really good, do you think that perhaps like do you think any of this I'm sure it's feeding into itself because that's exactly how these things work, but do you
Yeah.
think like that's like her not performing well is leading to her mood or like her feeling down and depression or whatever, right? Like if you're losing at something, you would feel down, right? So
Yeah. I can actually put this could be I can even change it to a gaming thing, to be honest with that.
Yeah.
Like let's say you were so naturally talented, maybe not even naturally talented. You're just like really
You're
good
just
at
used to
whatever
success,
it may
yeah,
be.
like,
Yeah.
yeah.
So you're always winning, right? And even when you got to the pros, you were winning, right? Um, but once see you started to validate your success off of the results
Right.
more often rather than what you know is true. Like whether you practice all this, I can hit this shot, I can do this, I can do all of this, right? But once that self-doubt creeps in, because like now you're not winning, right? So the validation
Right.
of the results is no longer there. And now how do you validate yourself,
Wow.
right?
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
like so like almost like trusting the process even when the results don't show, right, I guess, or
right.
whatever. But
Yeah, exactly. I think you and I have talked about this before that there's some like, well, Adu and I are NBA fans, so we could easily talk about this, but there are people like Steph Curry, household name, Damian Lillard. These guys were not highly recruited coming out of high school, but they are technicians of the game. They're shooters. They worked on small things of their game, and now they're like household names, right? They are people who kept working at their craft. So even if they got hurt or whatever, they were able to come back from it because they had that much confidence in what they've practiced, right? Not everybody's built that way, or have they gone through that struggle, right? Because
Right.
we've seen people who were like super immensely athletically talented, and they kind of, for lack of better words that I can think of right now, crap out when they reach the
Yeah, they just
NBA.
don't pan out. In other words, the word that they use for drafts is like busts, right?
Oh
You
yeah,
call
yeah, yeah, yeah. So there's that, and I mean, it's unfortunate, but like sometimes they say, uh, when you keep working through, I don't like this wording. I'm forgetting the better way to think about this, but the more struggles you go through, the stronger you're built. Uh, it has some,
pressure makes diamonds, right?
yeah, it does have some truth to it, but then there's some stuff that we're about to talk about in a bit that should go along with that statement.
Okay. Yeah, because I was kind
Um,
of wondering whether it's almost like this is a like and like sort of devil's advocate here, but maybe perhaps it's more of a like a defense mechanism in the sense that like she's like I'm not getting the results, and so she's like almost like creating I don't like excuses that she's not succeeding, or like she's having
mhm,
or she's like pulling out because she's lost her confidence in herself, or like she sees that as if not like basically not winning in the whole thing is would be
right.
considered failure for her, right? And she's almost like I don't know, like don't even go to the start line if you don't think you can win the whole thing. Maybe
Right.
I have no idea. It's all speculation, but do you think there's possibly anything like that going on in her head right now?
Possible, but now that you mentioned certain speculations, this is also speculation. For those that don't know, like there was the previous like dominant female tennis player was
Hmm.
Serena Williams, and I think when Osaka was coming up, this is the twilight years of Serena, right?
Hmm.
But Naomi beat her, and Serena actually had like a pretty like rude. I don't remember if it was an outburst or like I know it was rude treatment toward Naomi,
Hmm.
and Serena was supposed to be like
So
Naomi's
she
like
didn't take it
role model, or
well.
like yeah, like who she like idolized, maybe not
Hmm.
idolized, but like respected immensely, right? And that could have played something too, right? Because like in the business world, sometimes too,
They say don't meet your
sometimes
heroes, right?
yeah, yeah. Because sometimes your heroes might be pretty cool, but sometimes those heroes, like when you get to know them, they are technically human too, and sometimes
Hmm.
humans can make different decisions than you think they would.
Yeah, it's very possible that I don't know. So I was just wanting to see exactly what you thought about this situation and everything. And it's just something that's occurred relatively recently, so we thought we'd give it a little bit of a talk and maybe have some conversation about what exactly is going on in her head. Unfortunate that she's unable to proceed in this particular tournament. I'm sure we'll see more of her, and then we might be able to have more updates and more conversations about sort of like her progress or whatever exactly is going to happen with
Yeah,
her, right? Because who knows? She could get a lot better all of a sudden, or she could. It's possible she could get even worse, right? So we'll see.
yeah,
We'll see how she goes, right? We'd love to see people succeed and to overcome a lot of like their personal interpersonal demons, right? So
all
perhaps
right,
this is something that'll is still developing, and we'll talk about this more in the future. All right.
yeah.
So transitioning from that topic, we wanted to discuss today. So Mike and one of his friends, I think, found
One of my
a yeah. What?
one of my good friends told me about this IG account
Mm-hmm.
that is like amazing for people going through any type of mental health issues or like just trying to navigate the anxiety, depression, all sorts of like emotionally unavailable parents, etc.
Emotional damage.
Yeah, it's a meme, but it's true. Like, this IG account makes it digestible to those that don't even know about too much about psychology. And like during my time through therapy and healing myself, like this IG account actually made it pretty easy for me to understand a lot of different concepts, I guess you could say.
Okay.
So I fully promote her, and I would wish all of y'all to drop a follow for her because she is amazing. The work that she does is great.
Yeah, go check it out. Go
So
check it out.
it's
So,
called Doodled Wellness, and the topic that we're going to talk about today is gaslighting yourself versus validating yourself. So, those of you that are unfamiliar with the term gaslighting, it is such a buzzword these days, right? Gaslighting is when someone tries to manipulate you by making you question your own reality.
ooh, I love
Right.
doing gaslighting.
She, but I definitely would like to promote everyone to be accountable for their own stuff and don't victim blame others.
Yeah,
'Cause
there's
that
enough
just,
going on where you shouldn't like intentionally cause other people to question their own reality. That's pretty messed up. Anyway, so don't do
yeah.
gaslighting.
Yes, please don't. She also shows like certain examples that we got. Like if we go to the next little slide,
So
were there anything
basically,
else that you wanted to cover, Adu?
yeah, I think in particular what she, so this is by Amy Tran, what she wanted to go through here was to say that gaslighting is possible, but by other people is possible, but also self gaslighting is possible. And I think this is
Oh
like
yeah,
a really important sort of distinction where it's kind of like a lot of the time, sometimes, self doubt creeps in. A lot of people are more prone to this than other people are. So that like level of anxiety can like elevate, and like you're almost fighting yourself, right? So, in her words, this is basically gaslighting yourself versus validating yourself, right? And I think we wanted to like go through these. Self gaslighting might look like doubting your own internal experiences, denying or minimizing your own feelings, telling yourself that your own reactions are not important or not valid, right? So that's a very possible thing, like basically all like the hallmarks of like self gaslighting, right? So maybe we wanted to talk a little bit about some of the things that a few of these little bubbles that she's posted, and discuss like some of the patterns, because self doubt is healthy, right? Like what she says is
yeah.
self doubt is sometimes healthy, because like you can sort of reassess and reevaluate like your actions and your thoughts, but it can become problematic when it becomes a consistent pattern of self invalidation. Yeah. So
Invalidation. Right.
essentially, yeah, right. So like if you self doubt yourself too many times, or like if it becomes
Normal
worse
behavior.
or normal behavior, exactly,
That's
then
really unfortunate that happens.
yeah, and it can, right? So anyway,
Yeah. Some examples of like where it's a pattern, like consistent behaviors of self invalidation are like downplaying and questioning your own feelings and reactions, blaming yourself when others should be taking responsibility. That's what we mentioned earlier about being accountable, right? Shaming your internal experience. I think that's a big one right there.
right.
Also denying your own needs, telling yourself you're not worthy, or sorry, you're not worth believing, and you even question your own memories. These are all patterns of self-invalidation, and they can lead to not deadly, but like pretty mentally unstable situation if you let it become a norm.
Right. So what can we do about this? Like, so
So we want to refrain from emotionally abusing ourselves, right? Practice pausing for a moment and asking yourself questions such as, am I denying or minimizing my own feelings and needs? Uh, what do I need at this moment? Can I make space to validate myself right now? What would I say to a friend in a similar situation? What would I want to hear from someone I love and trust in this situation?
okay.
Those are all pretty good. Like I can even think of like an example with Valorant sometimes, like right after a round, right? You similar to what Naomi might have done, like not been able to do is validate outside of the results of the round or that
Right.
match or that win, whatever it may be, that point, whatever it was, that situation. Think of what you practice. You know you've practiced. You know you've worked this hard. The results will come with your belief in yourself, that confidence in yourself that you've built through all the practice, and also the that inner voice in your head
Hmm.
telling you it's okay. Being your own friend in a sense is one of
Right.
the situations that we just mentioned, right?
Right.
Like,
Right.
what would a loving friend or a family member, parent, whoever,
Mhm.
tell you in that situation? What would you want to hear from them? So
Right.
be your own friend at times and be that kind inner voice to yourself.
Right. You don't want to
And
like
then,
abuse yourself in that situation,
yeah.
right? Like being like, "Oh, I did something wrong. I'm so stupid," or something like that. Those kind of
Hmm.
those kind of like self thoughts are pretty harmful, especially if you do them too many times, right? Or like too often,
Right.
or the severity is too high on that. But I do find that really interesting because a lot of the time, I think I don't know, we may talk about this in a different setting or whatever, but like especially during like interpersonal conflicts, like this one, these are very internal conflict wise, right? But in a lot
Right.
of like
Right.
external conflicts or like like interpersonal conflict resolution, things like that. One of the things that I like to say the most when I talk to somebody is making sure that I literally say those words is like I think that your feelings are valid, right? Because a lot of the
Yeah.
time people need to hear that, right? Or I think like
Hmm.
especially when you're delivering a message, it's very important that you say that, right? Like I feel like your feelings or your thoughts are valid, right? There's a lot of people just want everybody just wants to be heard, just want to feel like they're being heard, right? And that their thoughts or whatever aren't being just like swept to the side, their feelings are not being trampled on. Like there's like a certain level of respect that you need to like dictate and essentially show somebody before they're able to be like, okay, I really do believe you that you think this. Now let's talk about exactly how we can change things or like why do you think feel this way, for example, is like another step in the right direction, right?
Hmm.
Sometimes like these things that doodled wellness have mentioned is like shame at your own internal experience or like feeling wrong for something, right? Or like why, but like then a lot of people don't ever resolve that, right? Like in their
Yeah.
internal conflict is essentially, oh, I feel bad about something, but then they don't really go any further and say, why did I feel bad about something?
Right.
Am I supposed to feel bad about something? Am I feeling bad about something because I'm supposed to feel bad about something, right?
Hmm.
Is it because of like there's like expectations or social
They may be
expectations or
missing the introspection, maybe to
yeah,
figure
right,
that what was the trigger to these things, and
right,
then is this actually my feelings at times,
exactly.
or and this was a thing that she also mentioned is self gaslighting can be a learned behavior from being invalidated or manipulated by others.
Right. So it could be outside
Also,
voices that become your own inside voice, right?
right. And also, like, I would hope that people don't go through this situation, but it's more common than you think that, like, if your parents were, like, invalidated or manipulated kind of by, like, your grandparents, essentially,
Generational trauma, Mike.
yeah, generational trauma. So that line would just keep going. And then you may have picked up those behaviors and you have learned that to be the
Break the cycle,
norm.
Mike. Break it.
Yeah. So I would hope that we're helping in trying to help break that generational trauma or yeah, generational trauma. And we can all like make a better life for our friends and family by making a healthier environment.
Right. And so basically, like it's a self wellness, mental wellness overall, right? Like this is like one of the places where you need to begin is essentially like, whether you're validating yourself and validating your actions. Now, not to say that you should be like, oh, like I'm the best in the world or whatever like that, right? But also to like just like be kind to yourself more often than not because we can sort of like let it get out of hand sometimes, depending
Right.
on your personality or who you are. Sometimes we could be our own worst enemy or our own worst critic, right? And sometimes that's important, but that's also sometimes important to let off a little bit sometimes and be like, that's okay. We're okay where we are right now, right?
Yeah. Be able to let go of those negative thoughts sometimes, that self
Totally.
doubt that might not even be a thing. Like you're overthinking it sometimes, and we're about to go into like an analysis and discussion about that
Okay.
in regards to, since we are an esports psychology channel, we're going to try to break it down with the game that Adu and I play the most, which would be, I play it the most as Valorant. I believe Adu also plays it a lot too, right, Adu?
Yeah, yeah.
All of this, the caveat or like pretext to everything would be you have practiced plenty to gain that confidence in yourself and trust with your abilities, and so that you can trust what you've practiced. And this is also assuming that your teammates or like your coach or whoever aren't trying to change a narrative or like make like victim blame onto you or whoever else. And those same teammates or coaches are also being accountable. If any of these aren't true, then you might want to consider who you are working with to achieve whatever goal, whether that be in traditional sports or esports. Esports,
Okay.
it might be a little bit easier to find different teammates, but usually we can always have a discussion with people first and then find out about
Yeah,
that.
so like
But
essentially like actors of good faith, right? Like people that are
right,
like they have your best interests in mind and you have their best interests in mind genuinely, right?
right,
And
right.
that could be the case where a lot of times it's the case where it may not be necessarily true, but to try and surround yourself with those type of people as much as possible, at least.
Yeah, and even if you do, you never know. You may be able to want to help them also navigate like how to stop those habits or behaviors. It would be a lot of work to be honest, but that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to like let people know that you have another option. So with the first example I wanted to point out is, you know, sometimes in Valorant or like any competitive game or sport, you can think, or in real life situation, I'm being way too dramatic and sensitive about something that just happened, right? But your feelings are valid, even if others don't agree, because when you get angry or those strong emotions come out, it's actually very telling of like you, the inner child in you per se, is trying to protect yourself, I guess, against being wronged. Like you're angry because you feel wronged in some way, right? And that's why those strong emotions sometimes when you deny letting those validating those feelings, they will burst eventually. Like it's like burnout, or like if you're a bubble, like eventually that bubble will just burst and everything that you try to hold back will explode, I guess, out.
So just like
And
repression of your
yeah,
feelings, right?
I would advise against that. Is not too healthy for you, but also you can understand your logic of the situation in a round and that it is valid, but you should also still consider their logic of why they believe that you could have done something else, right? And when you are understanding of where they're coming from, then you can both have a discussion of like, how could we either make this better or do we need to communicate this better in that situation, right?
Right, with respect especially because like I think it's very important for people to understand the perspective of like somebody performing an action, right? It's like it's just, this is essentially being like I did what I did at the time because that's what I thought was
Mm-hmm.
right at the time, right? And I think
Right.
that's a very valid statement, right? Like they did what they thought
Mm-hmm.
was right at the time, otherwise they wouldn't have done it, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
perhaps they could have given more thought to it, but maybe they didn't have the time to react to it, or whatever the case. But regardless, like they did what they did, right? Essentially, and they did it because that's what they thought was right at the time. And I think that's
Mm-hmm.
very important for us to, if you're talking about yourself or if you're talking about somebody else, then to acknowledge that that's good, that's fine, right? But then perhaps that there might be other courses of actions that could have been better, and that way we can modify our behavior in the future to improve, right? So, and that's part of the goal right there. But at the time, it's like if you think you're to yourself, I'm being way too dramatic or sensitive. Maybe that's like in response to like an outburst or something. But like you should always express your emotions, at least tactfully, and then like allow others to react to that and yourself to react to that and to move forward from there, right? Because your
Yeah.
feelings are valid at the time. But anyway,
And yeah, and that being too traumatic and sensitive, if you're having discussion, the emotions may get in the way at times because like you're not the emotions will kind of like fog your thoughts per se. So we'll get a little bit more into that in a bit. I wanted to piggyback off the previous thing we talked about, which is I reacted way too strongly. Kind of pretty similar
Basically
to
what we just said,
the
yeah.
yeah, but the example I'm going to get, or she mentions how to validate that instead of gaslighting yourself. It was a stressful situation for me, and it's understandable to react that
Exactly,
way.
right. And so that's what I said.
Right. And for that stressful situation, the first thing I think about in Valorant is you just had a clutch situation, right? And you might have failed, right? And in that situation, your emotions or whatever are running super high, or like you're just feeling that you let down after the team failed or you failed. And it's okay to feel bad, right? At that moment. You can be accountable, say my bad, whatever, and communicate with your teammates. And then you can let go of those feelings after that round and still try to remember the strategy parts, of course, but why you lost, but don't dwell on those negative thoughts. The key
Right.
part right there is don't dwell on those negative thoughts, because that's similar to what we were talking about, the self-doubt. Is it self-doubt that's plaguing me right now? That's just going to, when that just becomes a continuous cycle of like saying you start to have indecision in your movements, and you aren't able to play as cleanly as you were before, and your performance just goes down. What are your thoughts to do on that?
Well, yeah, I do agree with that a lot, right? Because like there's like a lot of, especially in gaming, right, or esports or whatever, it's almost intentional that we put ourselves through high pressure situations on purpose, right? And I think it's like it's emotion is extremely tied to that, right? And so people react immediately to those emotions, right? But I think like you're right. There's a lot to be learned from those exact situations, and how to like almost train yourself to be better in their high pressure situations. Some people are just better at it naturally. Some people are worse at it, but everybody can improve in that sense, and become better at it. And then so another thing I would say too is that there that emotion that was tied to that event oftentimes needs to, even if it's negative or positive, it needs to be maybe like separated from that event, so that when you do want to look at the results of it, and whether there was something better or not to do about it, that you separate those emotions from the actual happenings, and work from there as to whether that was the correct course of action or whether there was a better course of action, right?
Right.
It's like, oh, I smited Baron early because I got scared, right? And it's like, oh,
Yeah.
well, if you put yourself in that situation 9 times out of 10, or like more times, well, like maybe you could have succeeded, but what do you want? You want to do 99 out of 100 instead, 999 out of
Yeah.
1,000 instead, right? So like putting yourself in that situation, or like if there's like, I'm doing a 1v2 clutch right now, I'm defusing the bomb. Would it have been better for me to raise a wall first and then do what I did, or like what could I have done differently, or like like there's a lot of times in gaming where like you have to like consider what you did and whether that was correct or not, but you have to separate those emotions that you had at the time away from that, right? So that you can logically assess whether you did what was right or wrong, right?
Yeah. Also, one thing to talk about, that when you were talking about whether it be positive or negative thoughts, that brought me to like, okay, you should definitely feel happy when you make big plays, get excited, etc. But one thing I've noticed for sure, like whether like in volleyball, I didn't give myself as much like being happy after I actually spiked the ball down or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Because like I was trying to validate off the result, like, oh, I didn't actually, like, I got lucky or something, or like the people I'm playing against weren't that good or something. Like I was invalidating myself sometimes. But I see like pro volleyball players just anytime they score a point is like get happy and then celebrate with their team, go to the next play, right? Almost same thing when you see like like pro gamers also, like after maybe not League of Legends exactly, but like in Valorant or the tactical shooters, like you see the little like fist bumps, etc. Be like, yo, like the talks of encouragement, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
But then after that round's done, it's a new round,
Yeah.
right? Still, you still remember what they like to do, downloaded them to a degree, and how they might do something, right? But if you have those positive thoughts sometimes too much, or the negative thoughts, it could lead you into either overconfidence or not enough confidence, right?
Yeah.
To make the play that you believe you can do, right?
Right.
So come
I.
back to that
Mhm.
equilibrium, I guess you could say,
Yeah, for
right?
sure.
Does that sound right? And
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah.
then you can play smart. But
Right.
sometimes people say ride the high, I guess, and
Sometimes.
I don't know.
There's like a lot of like differing viewpoints or like ways to like look at these things. Like having like shooters have a short memory, right? In basketball, that's why they
Oh
say
yeah, yeah.
shooters have a short memory because it's like you could have missed the previous 27 shots and then you hit the last like 3-pointer or something like this, right?
Like the clutch shot that mattered,
Yeah,
etc.
like hit the
Right?
one that mattered or whatever. Like essentially, it's kind of like gambler's fallacy or whatever, where it's kind of like everything that happened before has, in theory, no bearing on what happens next, right? Like
Right? Yeah.
if you flip a coin 100 times and it always ends up tails, the next time you flip a coin is still a 50-50, right? Do you see what I'm saying? So basically,
Yeah.
it's essentially like you have to think about like I don't know, like you need to separate like the emotions from the actions. Like it might feel bad the whole time through, but you have to trust that like the next one that you do is like it's like you just like this one's the one, right?
Yeah.
And in the reverse, you could have hit the previous 100 shots or whatever, or you could have like thrown like 20 touchdowns in a row, but like the next one you throw could be a pick, right? So
Yeah.
like you got to be careful no matter which way, or like 1,000 strikes in a row, but the next one could also not be a strike, right? It could be a ball or
Yeah.
like something else, right? So essentially,
Yeah.
what I'm trying to say is like in a like a lot of the time, it's very very difficult, especially in high pressure situations and competition and things like that. In the reason that we seek these things is because of the emotion that it comes with, right? But also we need to realize that strategically, in terms of like how do we react to things, like we need to be careful because like whether good or bad, the next action that you take kind of has no bearing on like what happens in the future or what happened from before, like right, like it's a very independent situation versus like what happened in the past, right? Like we like so shooter's memory is like a real thing.
I forgot my thought as of now, but hopefully I remember it later and maybe I can talk about it.
Amnesia.
But
Mike has amnesia.
basically, but we can, I guess we can move on to the next topic.
The little bubble that she had here, right? What's the next
Yeah.
one?
So it's I want to, but I'm not good enough. That's the gaslighting version. The validating yourself is we all have strengths and weaknesses. And the part I enjoy the most is I can still try. I'm gonna give some self-disclosure here. Myself in a do. What I used to gaslight myself, at least in Valorant, is I want to, but I'm not good enough, right? Like I wouldn't try to make certain plays. Like I thought of like different type of things I could do, right? But I thought mechanically maybe I couldn't do it, or like my aim isn't good enough, etc. Like all sorts of things, right? And I kept thinking of it from a great big picture, right? Of I can't do it because of these things, right? But as soon as I started putting the practice in to like fix all these things, like what we said at the beginning, fix all these, what have you practiced and trust what you've practiced, right? So I started hitting the small little steps to get me to that goal of mine to like make some of these plays, right?
Okay.
And then recently I was playing with a dude, and after I've practiced a lot, etc., I have been playing more so by myself and with I guess solo queue people, right? And there's not that chemistry involved. But I've played with a dude for like so many different games, and my okay, sometimes I could be wild. That's what I'm gonna say. Like I'm greedy in like my positioning sometimes, and one time I remember very clearly on a map in Valorant. It was Pearl, the new map, and I pushed up really close to the enemy team and tried to get a greedy kill on an eco round. I didn't get anything, and I was like, I need help. A dude is across the map, throws me a way for me to get out, and because I was like half panicking, but I was about to, I'll just fight my way out, like right here, I'm gonna do it. But dude, my guy just said, "Yo, I got you, Mike. Just chill, relax." And then he puts it up, and I was like, "Oh, thank you, God." A dude comes, and then lo and behold, later in that round, I think I like capped 2 people. And we ended up stealing the round, I believe, from them. And that was like that sense of feeling where like everything that I've practiced, I can try still things, and I have my own strengths. And as long as I practice, etc., and am aware of my weaknesses, And I also tell my teammates, well, in a do situation, he already knows them, so he bails me out at times, and I just felt like I transcended, to be honest, like an ability, both in like real life where I'm playing volleyball, way more confidence in the things I try. In Valorant, like I don't know, even feel like my reflexes are better, or like my eyes are more connected with what I'm doing, I guess, and
Hmm.
that's like my self-disclose end of my self-disclosure story of like when you think you're not good enough, just approach the problem at like the smallest parts, and how do you get to that point where you understand your strengths and weaknesses, and you improve it where you can try
Right.
whatever you want, and you never know, your teammates will probably be like, oh, okay, yo, I got you, and then some crazy stuff happens, and it's absolutely amazing feeling, in my opinion.
Yeah, being there's something to be said about like teamwork and being on the same page. Sometimes when you're just vibing, when you're grooving, as a group of people, especially when you know what each other are trying to do, you can bail each other out. You can do you know stronger than the sum of your parts, right? Like there's like a amplifying effect, right? Like you can succeed further than you might have expected, right? So
Hmm.
I think that has to do a lot with interpersonally, right? But and having that trust in yourself, when you say to yourself that I have these strengths, I also have weaknesses, but at the
Hmm.
very least, I can always still try, right? So
Yeah.
I like that idea a lot.
Also, I feel like I'm playing devil's advocate to myself though, is don't also like understand you need to understand yourself too, right? Don't need to always fall into the flow of your teammates at times. Like you can help them, but like if you don't feel good about it, like it's like peer pressure almost, right?
Hmm.
Sometimes if you have that intuition or that feeling that you don't like it is a feeling of discomfort, right? Maybe you can try it once or twice, but if you really still don't like it at that time, maybe don't do it. Tell them like I don't like this, or like I don't want like, and that's also okay. Like sometimes like when you play with random people, some people will say like you should have peeked with me, you should have done this, da 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 da, right? Whether that be in real life, also like they try to put that pressure on you that you should have done this with them, right? But take that control back from them. Know yourself, know what you like. You can once in a while try, just for the heck of it, like see if things are different this time, but eventually after you tried so many times, might as well make a different choice, right?
Like basically
Um,
slamming your head over into the wall, or like trying something
yeah.
different, or like adapting to different situations quickly, right? So what's the next one?
Exactly.
Next one. It says, I
Uh,
just need to get over it, right? So it says, I just need to get over
right.
it versus it is okay if I need more time to process things, right? So you might tell
Ooh.
yourself, I need to get over it, right? Like, oh, this isn't a big
Mm,
deal. I need to get over it. But
yeah.
then on the other side of things, in order to like more healthily address this, it might be, it's okay if I need more time to process things, right? So
Yeah.
what do you think about this?
That may be similar to Naomi, to be honest, but without going down that rabbit hole
Maybe.
again, probably I will say, like, in the Valorant situation, you probably don't want to do this exactly during the game per se, but it's more so when you are reviewing the game
Okay.
or your gameplay with your team or with yourself. I know streamers, League of Legends players, Valorant, whatever, it's actually really important to review your gameplay so that you can be aware of your own habits and
Game
flaws at
film,
times
watch the
or
tape,
weaknesses. Yeah.
analysis, all these. Yeah.
Pros at every level, like starting from well, I know in high school football that you start watching film, college even more so, and pros, of course, you're like always watching film. But back to the emotion part, you don't want to argue with your teammates or with elevated emotions, or like self-assess yourself with those elevated emotions after like that stressful situation that we mentioned before, right? But rather we'd rather discuss issues with your teammates or yourself after those emotions have faded, so that they aren't fogging your thoughts, and you can have uh concise thoughts and explain your logic and like understand their logic without feeling defensive or attacked, etc., like you're just calm. Also, when you are calm at times, and even though other people are not calm, if you give them time, just like how you can give yourself time to process things, they tend to take that energy also. They sense that you're calm, you're not attacking, but
Hmm.
you're willing to listen.
Right,
And
exactly.
then but you still have to stand strong on what you're trying to say. You can't let them sway you. So that's the point of the discussion,
Okay.
right?
Hmm.
You don't have to people please, but you
Right.
can always listen.
Right, right, right. So yeah, exactly, right. So in this sense, it's basically I just need like you saying if you say to yourself, I just need to get over it, right? But like on the other hand, it's like you need more time to process things, right? So like if somebody is trying to bug you about something immediately, right? Then to be like, look, I'm not over this right now. I need some time, right? Like give me a little bit of time and I can get over it, and then we can talk about this later or whatever, right?
Hmm.
So that's kind of like what this little bubble is saying, right? And it's better to feel those emotions because like they're like again we're saying those
Yes,
emotions
yes,
are
yes.
valid, right? So those emotions are
Hmm.
valid, and then come back when you're ready, right? Like because some people need more
Right.
time to be ready.
Yeah. We are skipping some of the bubbles
Okay, that's fine.
for a lack of time, but another bubble that we want to go over is,
Very relevant to gaming, right?
yeah, I must be doing something wrong. The gaslighting version, and like something that a lot of us might do based off the results of like if you're on a lose streak or you've lost a couple of rounds in Valorant or League of Legends. Validating yourself is my self-doubt getting in my way? Really important there. That's self-doubt. But those losing streaks and self-doubt leads to indecision and disconnection of the mind and body, which we talked about with maybe with Naomi, why she may have got injured a couple times or why her performance isn't as clean, right? Hell, we can just think of you in any of us in a round of Valorant or League of Legends where you feel like you keep getting caught for some reason, right? Or like you are missing your shots or missing a skill shot, whatever it may be, right? Then you're starting to think you start to attack yourself almost as like I must be doing something wrong. But sometimes it's literally like, oh, they made a good play. They were able to sidestep or whatever they were able to do. They just hit the craziest shot of their life or they got lucky. Literally, they could have gotten lucky. And you know what? You can just accept that and go because if you keep self-doubting yourself, then you start moving slower.
Hmm.
Your body has been trained so much. Like I said, if you've practiced this, trust what you've practiced because if you can always review it later and figure out what you were truly doing wrong with the strategy or whatever it may have been, but trust yourself and talk with your team about what you can do and then be confident that you've practiced this, you belong here, etc. And that'll go a long way for you to perform at or consistently perform at the level that you I guess have practiced. I'm not as eloquent as Adu, so Adu, can you kind of help me out here?
Yeah, like I think it's a very very important thing to like not allow self doubt to like creep into your mind to like just like cause it's very insidious, right? It can cause you to change a lot of the or attempt to change a lot of the things that you've been doing correctly, right?
Right.
I think it's very important for us to make sure that self doubt is not negatively affecting us, especially when there's no time to change our current course of action, right? Like just basically
Mhm.
we've had a plan, we're going to stick to this plan, and we're going to go through with it, right?
Mhm.
On the other hand, right, it is important that we do sometimes question like a lot of time like adapting, right? Like if like halftime adjustments, those kind of things, right? Halftime adjustments or like going through a timeout or whatever, and then like actually really taking that moment or that time to be like, are we actually doing something wrong, right? Or is it just that
Mhm.
we're not we're like we can continue performing the same action, but we'll get better results later if we think that we're doing the right thing. It's just like it's not working out in this particular time, right? So I think it's very important for us to have this one in particular, this little bubble, this little thought process here, to like really strike a good healthy balance on this one, right?
Yeah.
Because it is possible you are doing something wrong, right? It is possible,
Yeah. It is
and
very
I think it's
possible.
very important to question that. But I do think that like if you are like no like honestly like we are doing the right thing, then to be like okay like let's not let that affect us, right? Like or affect us in
Or
the
become a
bad way.
normal pattern of thought
That
or
too.
behavior, like what Amy said before, right? I believe she said it's healthy to have a little bit of self doubt, but so you can carefully assess the situation, right?
Right.
But don't go all in on the other side of
Yeah.
self
Don't go
doubt where it
overboard on that
affects
at all.
everything. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah. Like I think
and
that's a good place to talk about that and stay with that, right? I think I would
mhm.
agree with
she
a
she
lot of
has
these.
actually a she has actually a little the ending part, or I can just read it real quick that
Sure.
I think is pretty good for everyone to hear.
Okay.
So, when we have been invalidated and manipulated by other people and society, we learn that we feel what we think and who we are is not okay. And these critical voices become our own critical voices, those inner voices in our head, right? This creates shame for how we feel, suppression of who we truly are, and self doubt about our internal experiences. Take back your power. Talk to yourself the way you wanted someone to talk to you when you needed it the most. You deserve it. Love you, humans. I personally love that because I want everyone to just like remember who they really are and just honestly be free to make your choices, you know? Because once you start doing that, you feel you'll be surprised at some results. I'll promote that y'all should try that, and then come back to me, leave a comment about that, or also if you needed have any questions about the other topics that we didn't go about that Amy threw in there, leave a comment and ask, and we can reply or maybe do another video.
It's all part of like the emotional hygiene sort of situation that we like to try to put ourselves through, like cleanse ourselves of any bad thoughts, like go ahead and like work through our emotions, feel that it's okay to feel those emotions, right? Process those
Hmm.
feelings, and then like work on moving forward from there. Whatever, whether there be any kind of conflict in your life or internally or whatever, to put that to rest and to feel like almost like secure in these in how you're feeling, right? Okay,
Yeah.
that's wonderful. And so I think that really hits those topics that we hit the topics that we wanted to discuss today, from Naomi Osaka and the current events of what's going on with her in tennis, and also on this particular post by Doodled Wellness. Once again, special shout out to Doodled Wellness, made by Amy Tran. A lot of the content there is extremely good. This is the first time that I've ever seen it, that Mike has shown it to me, and it's extremely good to look at and to think about and to help us process our thoughts and feelings. And I think sometimes we don't take that time to do so, or we just never have done it before, or aren't used to it, or whatever the case may
We
be.
weren't aware of it sometimes, right?
Exactly. So her work there is really good. So be really nice
Much
to
appreciated.
to go check that out if you guys have time. Like and follow, subscribe, whatever on for Doodle Wellness. And on the other hand, also for us, this is gonna be a nice little outro for us for season 2, episode 1. Shout outs to everybody out there, all of our listeners, our viewers, everybody that's been on board with us this whole time. We're going to have a lot more content coming out a lot more frequently. We're going to
Yeah.
try to reestablish the way that we do things around here too, right, Mike?
We got someone helping with our social media stuff now. We may even start being able to find some different things that y'all might like, and try reaction videos, try a couple different things.
Yeah.
Just like leave it in the comments about maybe something that you would like to see us try.
Examples
Season
might be
two,
tournament reviews, right, or video
yeah, yeah.
reviews, play reviews, things like that, or like other things that anybody wants to bring to our attention, journal articles on psychology, especially maybe psychology journal article reviews. We could talk about those. Any kind of current events that come by, reaction videos, anything that like really is like up and coming, anything that you guys want to talk about, really, right? We're here for that. There's a lot that we like to discuss, and we'd be honored and
More than happy.
happy to do that with you guys. So don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, all the above. Turn on notifications. Make sure that you know that when we're going live, when we're posting things. We do have a little bit of a backlog right now, but we're working through those to try and put out as much content as possible. So shout out to everybody out there. We appreciate you. Mike, are you tilted?
I'm always tilted. Adu, are you tilted?
I am always tilted, constantly tilted. So, but after today's episode, I'm starting to feel like maybe I should validate my tilted emotions and then process those and think about ways that I could be a little less tilted. You know, like sometimes,
Yeah.
you know, like working through those feelings, right?
Or you could be tilted.
Yeah, I'm always tilted. You know me. All right, thanks guys. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Thanks.
Appreciate you.
Bye.
Bye. Mike, are you tilted?
I'm always tilted. Adu, are you tilted?
I am always tilted, constantly tilted.